Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to more CSGO news, and what a weekend, huh? Yeah, I'll get more loud as we go on, but I hope you guys all enjoy another episode of CSGO news. As always, my name is Jake, and why I started out like that and why I'm so happy is our first story today. Yes, it's now official, guys. For the first time ever in Counter-Strike Global Offensive history, a North American team, an American team, has taken the #1 spot. That, of course, being because this past weekend, Liquid did take Dreamhack Masters Dallas, and with that, the #1 spot as well in the HLTV rankings. For the first time in over 400 days, Astralis is not #1, and yeah, like I said before, the first time in Counter-Strike, our Global Offensive CSGO history, it should be said, on the HLTV #1 rankings, a North American team sits at the top, and it is certainly well deserved. Now, Liquid's third title throughout this year so far, although I will say I did not expect this to happen. I am happy it did happen. The only question is now, how long can it last? As let's keep in mind, guys, we do have a couple of events, of course, some big ones coming up in June, ECS Finals as well as ESL Pro League Finals, and ECS Finals are this upcoming weekend, which Liquid will not be at and Astralis will be at. Now, also speaking of that, another top 5 team out there, and ENCE has been performing very well lately. On top of that, they will be at neither of those because they did not qualify for ECS, and on top of that, they chose not even to compete in ESCA this past season, so no ESL Pro League, no ECS, no big events in all of June for ENCE, so they likely will never take that #1 spot, at least not for the end of June. And with that being said, it will come down to those two events, those two big events for Astralis and Liquid, to determine who's going to be the #1 team at the very end of June. But either way, with that being said, an historical moment, and I'm very happy because you guys know I'm American. But anyway, enough of that, guys. Let's break it down. Spoilers for all of you guys for, of course, Dreamhack Masters Dallas. It's going to be a really quick summary. I usually don't do too quick of summaries for tournaments out there, but there's tons of CSGO news as well, which will all be timestamped down below. And I'm going to give you guys my brief few thoughts about this. The first of which, Cloud9 fans, well, they should be worried. Not a decent showing yet with this new roster, although you can look at it several different ways. You know, you lose to a Fnatic in a best of 1, then you're forced to NRG in a best of 3, who are certainly the more dominant of those two teams. A very short run for Cloud9, a dead last finish, but maybe not taking too much away from this. But either way, with that being said, like I said before as well, not a decent showing yet with this new roster. So Cloud9 fans should be a bit shaky, but when it comes down to my 3 most impressive teams I saw this past weekend, Vitality, Furia, and FaZe, both of which, neither of which I should say of the 3 did not come away with a victory here. But with that being said, some stellar runs across all 3 of those teams. As Vitality did manage to take down both North and NIP, I would say quite handily. With that being said, though, Furia has shown up to a very surprising feat. One of the teams out there that really just shows you hard work certainly does pay off. You know, this last major as well, they actually boot camped for several weeks beforehand. They showed that dedication and they earned their spot as well back in the major. With that being said, though, they take down some very impressive teams themselves. They take down Fnatic, NRG. They go to map 3 with ENCE in a pretty close, a somewhat close series. Either way, a notable finish there. And they also take down Vitality. When it comes to FaZe fans, I would be a little bit, I was definitely impressed this past weekend. I'd be hopeful for the future of this brand new FaZe roster. Of course, most recently acquiring Neo to the roster themselves. They have definitely shown some high potential with this roster. Yes, they cannot close these games quite yet, but with that being said, I was probably of the 3 teams most impressed by FaZe Clan this past weekend because they beat Wendigo in their opening best of 1. I will not take too much away from that, but you guys know the Wendigo fan I am for the past European minor and the upcoming one as well. They are a huge competitor and will be a very likely upset team, much like of the likes of a Furia, I think, around that level as well. So an opening best of 1 nonetheless. They also are one of a couple teams to 2-0 sweep NIP, who I would say had a somewhat of a struggle this past weekend. They also take down G2. I believe map 2 went to a triple overtime, but either way, they 2-0 sweep your second best French team currently in the world. And their 2 losses, their only 2 losses in best of 3s, were arguably both thrown away. The first of which to Liquid, which we now know is one of our best, if not the best current team in the world. That goes to map 3 in a series arguably thrown away by FaZe Clan at several moments as well. And then against ENCE, they were 2-0 swept, but if you guys watched that series, FaZe led both of those maps at one point in time, and certainly that series could have gone a different way very easily. So they are so close to going over that hump, so close to closing out these games, and either way, I was very impressed by this FaZe Clan roster, by Furia, by Vitality as well. And I think Dreamhack Masters, why I want to cover it so quickly, is it was a cluster frick. I'll be honest with you guys, of showing how many teams are just so close currently in CSGO, besides the likes of course, of a Liquid, maybe even ENCE as well. To wrap it up, it was Liquid to take the title over ENCE. It's still a very, I would say, a pretty debatably close series, a very fun series to watch, although a few people out there are going to argue that, for some odd reason, Liquid is somehow even more boring to watch than Astralis. I'm an American biased fanboy, so I will not agree with that statement, but either way, Liquid do take your Dreamhack Masters title, and we have so many clear-cut CSGO teams out there that are clearly cut in the same fashion, around the same rank, and there are so many teams so competitively close right now. It's a great time for CSGO to be alive, and I hope we're in the same current mood and shift as we slowly approach our Starlighter Berlin Major. Are there any best teams right now out there, clear-cut best teams? It's certainly more debatable than it ever was. And as we slowly approach all of our minor qualifier teams being finalized, I will keep you guys posted on what teams actually do manage to qualify, but it was a former Envy member himself, that being Drone, competing for his new roster as well, and they almost were not allowed to use him. Now, luckily enough, they eventually were allowed to use him because he was actually Overwatch banned during the weekend of his minor qualifier. So, of course, a very bad time to have this happen to the roster itself. They were able to use him. They did actually manage to qualify as well with these teams for you guys on screen. So it was very close, but obviously going forward, his main accounts are still going to be banned, and he can actually practice as well. So this Overwatch ban is apparently a temporary griefing ban. If you guys have no idea what that means, if you're reported for griefing twice, it becomes a permanent ban. If you're reported for griefing once, it's a temporary ban, which still means, though, he cannot actually practice. He'll have to find some way around that, but luckily enough, he was worked around this past weekend. Just a very abusable problem we have had in CSGO for quite some time. I mentioned this, I believe, nearly a year and a half ago. If you were somehow griefing banned, which is very possible if you play matchmaking frequently, if you are griefing banned just twice, it becomes a permanent CSGO ban, which can be very detrimental to a pro player out there, especially one who has not even matchmaked much besides a couple of games this past weekend, and then not until mid-April besides those 2 matches. So it's a very dangerous implementation to have in the game, and we've had in the game for quite some time. Luckily, Drone can still compete. I think they will allow him to continue to compete, hopefully, because they did already for the minor qualifier. But with that being said, he is still temporary Overwatch banned. Just to let everyone know, hopefully that will be resolved. He is not a cheater, unlike some pro players who've been accused recently, and Valve just hasn't responded. So hopefully Drone can still compete going forward, which I do believe he can. Practice, though, is an entirely different problem he'll be involved with. And speaking of North American minor teams, you saw ATK also, I guess I'll re-show you guys the picture, might as well. They are also on there. They have also, alongside Envy, another minor qualified team so far, or at least I should say closed qualifier qualified team so far. They are making changes, that being Envy dropping JDM, which people were somehow still surprised about. We talked about this last week. I believe Decay leaked it first as well a while ago. They had a targeted replacement for JDM for quite some time, and it will be ATK former member, that being Sonic, to now join him and replace JDM on that roster, which going forward has been a very controversial debate. I think a lot of people out there saw JDM as somewhat of a downfall, but a lot of people also saw him as certainly one of Envy's better players as well. And so this replacement is certainly, I would say, controversial at the very least, but I do want to point out my main issue with Envy so far is a couple of players on the roster who have not lived up to expectations. I'm not necessarily worried about Sonic and how he fits that role for JDM, more so worried about the bottom end of the roster so far actually being able to lift themselves up to the other level of the other members on the roster so far. I think there's been a member or two right now that have really not, I guess, lived up to our expectations so far, and that is my worry for the near future of the Envy roster. Do I like this change? I think it's questionable. I don't really know how it's going to affect the roster itself. Is it the best move they could have made? I don't know, but I think right now Envy can still reach a level of potential. They can still compete in North America very likely. It's just a matter of a couple players actually living up to those expectations. So Sonic, and the former Bravado member himself, and that former ATK roster, which was made up of 4 of the 5 ex-Bravado guys, they are now slowly but surely breaking apart, and for that closed qualifier, they will now compete with a new member that will not be Sonic, as Sonic has now officially joined Envy. Again, just weird moves going, especially because these moves are happening so close to the major. And very lastly, for all of you guys, I don't know why my arms are up in the air. Maybe it's out of excitement. A lot of people talking about Skadoodle's latest tweet, which was not really much. It didn't really showcase much. It could have been just a brand new intro for a YouTube video, but if you guys were weary about this, some rumors starting, some talk, maybe of course, about Skadoodle coming out of retirement to rejoin some sort of North American team out there, and now rumors, of course, talking because Shroud as well as Nothing did respond to this. What could it be? Could he be joining some kind of stream team? I'm not sure about this one, guys, especially when you look at the ex-Cloud9 guard who are currently semi-retired. You have Shroud, you have Nothing, you have Sean Garris, you have Hiko, you have Ska. With that being said, though, it's very obvious Shroud has his stream. He's not going to be returning to competitive, at least full-time competitive CSGO anytime soon, if ever again. Sean Garris just had his baby, guys. So anyone who's talking about a potential Skadoodle team, I just highly doubt it's going to live up to expectations if it is true. And again, this literally could be an intro to a YouTube video. This could be some kind of graphic. Is it going to be a new team? I don't know. I haven't heard anything quite yet. Will it live up to expectations, though, if that is the roster that people want? I don't know, guys. But with that being said, I will of course keep you guys posted what the announcement may be. Will a new North American team surface yet again around Hiko, who we have not really seen shown up for a couple of years, around Sean, who has a baby, around Shroud, who has a stream that takes precedence? I don't know. We're going to see what happens in the future. As always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode of CSGO News. Come back tomorrow for all of you guys who might be commenting right now about the argument between Sir Scoots and Sadokist on Twitter. Well, it was a long one. I'm going to probably break that down tomorrow for a video as well, because that argument, well, it was very, it was long, it was lengthy, it was very articulate between both those parties, and I want to break it down in its individual video, or at least with a less crowded CSGO News episode. So that'll be coming sometime soon. As always, I hope you guys all enjoy. And one last thank you. We broke 30,000 subscribers this past weekend. Thank you guys very much. Until next time, take care of yourselves. I will see you all back here very soon. And until then, bye.